exploring how maternal bonds
Today
impact
we are
African
embracing
American
a
women's
very
lives and
difficult
relationships. Let's
topic. Like
explore
when
how
God gave me
mommy
this topic,
wounds
I was like,
influence love
"What?"
and relationships, fostering healing
Like
together.
I started breathing heavy, y'all. I got triggered. Like soon as he gave me the topic, I was triggered. Okay, so I know this is not an easy topic for us to embark upon, but it's a much needed topic. It was stemmed out of my need to kind of understand why it is that I see such high levels of disrespect towards African American women, as well, um, with me understanding that the way that people relate to African American women has a lot to do with, well, the way that black men relate to African American women has a lot to do with how it is that they were raised, right? And it also has a lot to do with their relationships and the things that they have gone through with women, right? And a lot of times, what we do is we will mirror whatever relationships we had in our childhood, we will also mirror those as adults. So, just like women get into relationships with men that remind them of their fathers, men also get in relationships with women that remind them of their mothers. Okay, so today we're talking about the mommy wound and how that affects our relationships, our romantic relationships, how it is that we relate to women, and like all that cool stuff. Right now, this is a healing channel, right? This is a healing channel. So, and healing is not always easy because, let me put this ear on. Healing is not always easy because we have to, in order to heal, it requires us to look at things that may be difficult. It requires us to look at things that may cause us to go through a grieving process, right? And that grieving process is when we actually have to take the time to really get real with ourselves about the things that we did not receive as a child. And that is not always easy to look at, right? And also, too, we're talking about moms. And no one wants to villainize their mother unless, of course, they were raised by somebody that was extremely abusive. And then in that case, you may already have negative feelings about your mother. But if you have very loving feelings about your mother, you may not realize that there were things that were missing in your childhood. Or maybe you do realize that there were things that were missing in your childhood. And it hasn't affected your love for your mother, which is fine, which is great, right? Give me 1 second. Um, that's good, right? Because then you're not dealing with, one of the things you're not dealing with is like bitterness and anger, right? So there are certain underlying things that are a result of our childhood relationships with our mothers, right? Now, there are two ways that a mommy wound can be formed. Either number one, well, there's multiple ways that a mommy wound can be formed, but we're going to talk about, I'm going to just discuss two major ones, right? So we're going to go from one end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum, okay? So you either had a mother who may have depended on you more than she should have with you being a child, right? You may have had a mother who found her identity in you as the child versus having her own sense of identity prior to having you, right? Now, you may say, well, that's not bad. You know what I mean? Like, I was her pride and joy. And if you were, that's good, right? But if if your mom is looking to you for that sense of identity, it robs you of the ability to construct your own solid sense of identity, which affects our self-esteem, right? That affects how it is that we view ourselves, right? Also, the way that your mother viewed herself will also imprint on you as well. So if she was always stressed, had certain things going on, that she was trying to work through, that will have had an effect on you as a child, right? So like I said, we're not villainizing moms today. We're not villainizing moms, but we're being very honest about what our childhood relationship looked like with our mothers, because that in turn affects our adult relationships, namely your romantic relationships, right? It affects how it is that you relate to the other women in your life as you become an adult, right? So if you have mommy wounds, that will play out in your relationships, in a toxic or negative way, right? So we talked about one way that it could play out. If mom depended on you, you were her confidant, you were kind of like her therapist. She found her sense of identity within you. That is one way. Another way, on the opposite end of the spectrum, is if mom was not always there emotionally or physically. So maybe mom worked a lot, or maybe mom had a drug problem, so you had to stay with family, or you were with the babysitter a lot. Or maybe mom was always there, but she was not emotionally available, right? She was not emotionally available for your needs for whatever reason. We're not villainizing moms, right? Because as a single mother, I know that I didn't do everything perfectly, right? Because as a single mom, you are raising your children, but then at the same time, you're also dealing with all of your stuff, right? And